To start, I mark a line with a spirit level at the correct height of 450, which is the current new build reg height. I draw around my socket, then I'll mark where the cable entry is going to be to the back box, and then line it up with my conduit. Use the multi-tool and just neatly go around all the edges to take off the first layer of plaster. I mean, it won't always come off as neat as this. It doesn't really matter if the plaster is going to come and fill it in, but obviously the neater it is, the easier it is for the plaster, and it just looks a better job. So once we get the plaster off, then we need to get the SDS drill out with a chisel bit on. There we go. I use a chisel bit which is the same width as a socket. I find it just easier to get a neater finish on the brickwork. I go around all the edges, and then I try and make a little indent in the face of the brick. Just find it easier to chisel them off and then smooth it out. Just see this next technique that I use now. Push it to the side. Just smooth off the face of the brick. The more brick face that you have there, it's easier to get a better fixing on the back box. Obviously, if your back box isn't fixed tight to the wall and people are plugging out all the time with the socket, it can dislodge it. So if you can get two good fixings in the back box, it's not going anywhere. So you just take your time, keep putting your back box in, checking where it needs to be chiseled off to make it smoother, for it to fit in. See, you can see little parts just on that right side. More needs to come off there to get it in. Just have to be a little bit patient. If you go in too much, you can take a big chunk of the brick off, and then just makes your job a lot harder to get your fixing. The socket was originally on the skirting board here. The skirting board's eventually getting taken out, so we can make some holes in the skirting board to get our cable through, which makes it a little bit easier too. Normally we'd be lifting the floor up next to it and drilling down and then refishing the cables back up, but we have the go ahead to make some holes in the skirting board. Nearly there. And then before you screw the back box door, I always take out the entry and put my grommet in and mark it with a green blaster, I call it. It's officially called a marksman, seen on Dragon's Den. Use a green blaster and then get the SDS drill out again with a 5.5 drill bit. And if you get your cables ready before you screw the back box to the wall, find it just a little bit easier. There we go. So we'll cut a conduit to the right length, hacksaw out. It's much easier doing it this way than putting the box on and then trying to get the cables in and get your conduit on. So if you get it all ready like that, push it in, and then you get your 1.5" 8 screws. In you go, impact driver, second one, perfect. Strip the cable. I just like to make sure all the cables are the same length. Make them as neat as you can. All my stingers are the same length. We'll put some earth sleeve on the bare earth cable. Use the matte black socket face for this job, customer's request. Make sure our connections are nice and tight. No copper on show. and then position them so that when we screw the socket face back, the screws don't nick our cable at all. I always leave the socket screws vertically as well. It looks neater to me, but also you know if someone else has touched the socket, because they'll never leave them the same way as you do. I always leave them horizontal, not vertically. Leave them all horizontal.